Hi, Chef AJ here. I'm actually going to cook something on the stove. That's very rare for me because it's 110 today, but I need to show you how to make my favorite mushroom gravy. So we start with a pan, always get the biggest and the best that you can afford. I am using a hard anodized steel Pampered Chef pan that I've had for 20 years. It's nonstick, yes, it's never chipped. If you're not comfortable using nonstick, get a great stainless steel pan, waterless cookware, ceramic, whatever you want, but get something that's not cast iron and, that's just a good pan, right? So you want to turn the heat up high. And since we're not cooking with oil, we do the little water test to see if it's hot enough by just taking a little water. And if it makes a little ball like that and kind of rolls around the pan, that means it's hot enough. And so now I'm going to add my onion. I do not have a lot of time, so I don't mind paying a few extra pennies for pre-chopped things. Trader Joe's sells a nice little bag in 10 ounces, so that works very well for me. I believe that's about 2.5 or 3 cups. Isn't this a beautiful spatula that Tammy Kramer gave me? Matches my blouse. And so you really don't need any liquid at all, at least to start off when you're caramelizing your onions. You just need a good pan and you need high heat. You could use no sodium broth or water if you need to. As this progresses and it starts to dry out a little bit, then we can add just, a half a tablespoon of water if we're using broth at a time. I want to do my onions first before adding anything else. I'm going to be adding mushrooms afterwards. I'm using the Crimini, and this is a 10-ounce bag. I'm not sure how many cups it is, but assuming you buy your food at a store, there's always scales that you can measure. But it's just so easy to buy things pre-chopped, in my opinion. Yes, it's a little bit more costly. If you have bulk stores, like, I don't know where you live, but Smart and Final, here we have Costco, you get huge bags of things already chopped up and even freeze some in advance. So you could actually caramelize these onions so brown and dark, just like if you were using oil. You don't need oil, and you don't even need very much liquid. You just need, like I say, a good pan and high heat and some patience. So I'm not even going to stir them around until they start to brown. So most gravies have some kind of thickener, like a cornstarch or flour, which in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, we just really don't use any kind of flours or ground grains usually. So I found a way to thicken it, but yet make it creamy and delicious with a secret ingredient, which I'll show you in a minute. And so many of my recipes start out this way, with sauteing an onion and then maybe adding some garlic or mushrooms, like lip smack and mouth-watering kale. Especially when you don't use salt, you really need to use something that's going to be flavorful. And onions are very flavorful. If you could just come in a little bit closer, please. They can see how it's already starting to get nice little brown on it. And I haven't added any water yet. It's just better to spread it out. What I like about this pan is because it's a wok size pan, and so I can really get a good surface area. I can be spreading them up on the top, and then it goes pretty quickly. So when you cook onions, they're much more mellow. Just same thing with garlic. If I'm not going to be adding garlic right now because I actually roasted my garlic, which I'm going to add to the blender when I make this gravy blended. But if for some reason you didn't want to roast your garlic, then I would definitely add some chopped raw garlic here, as many or as few cloves as you like. Always add garlic after the onions are done, because garlic, which is chopped generally very fine and minced, it could burn quickly. So wait till my onions are done before I add my garlic, but I'm not adding it because I roasted it. So what I did is I roasted a half a cup of cloves of garlic. I used my air fryer because it was easy, just 10 minutes at 370, and I got these wonderful, I don't know if you can see how squishy they are, just delicious cloves of garlic. When you roast garlic, just like when you roast anything else, it mellows it out, so it's not as strong. So right now I'm going to add just a tiny, you might want to come in a little bit closer, please, and focus on these wonderful onions. Just a tiny bit of water, not much, but look at that. It's going to brown it even more quickly, and the water will evaporate very quickly. It does take a little longer to saute an onion than to use a raw onion, but the flavor difference is profound. It mellows it out. It's so good. You can see how quickly it browned, and nothing is sticking, by the way. A lot of my friends, Mary McDougall also, who else is my friend, but also a wonderful cook, has said she uses the Scan Pan. And I've heard of the Copper Chef, the green pan. My friend Sharon likes to use waterless cookware. There's many different kinds. There's Salad Master, there's other companies. So again, use the best you can afford. The only thing I recommend is if you do use a nonstick like a Teflon, make sure there's no chips. Especially don't use it if you have a pet bird. I know that Dr. Neil Barnard says do not use cast iron because that can be linked to Alzheimer's. So you can see how in a very short amount of time we got a nice brown on this onion. And so now I'm going to add my mushrooms. You could chop your mushrooms, slice them yourself very easily. What I do is I use a little egg slicer that I got at the 99-cent store. Of course, I don't eat eggs. Been on a plant-exclusive diet for 42 years, but I found that egg slicers come in very handy for slicing bananas and mushrooms and even strawberries perfectly and easily. So just sauteing onion and mushroom is a great side dish to anything you could probably eat in life. It's great with greens. It's just great as a side dish. It's so flavorful. I know that mushrooms are one of those foods that are best cooked. At least that's what some of the medical doctors say. You don't want to eat them raw. I find that they don't really taste very good raw. They really don't have any flavor raw anyway. So we're just going, the thinner you slice them, the quicker they'll cook. And I am doing this on high heat. And again, I only add a little water or broth at a time if I feel it starts to stick. I wish you could smell this. It smells absolutely amazing. If you were going to have plant-based burgers for dinner, like bean burgers, this would be a great condiment to put on top. I know that, when I've been to restaurants, this was always offered as a topping for burgers, sauteed mushrooms and or sauteed onions. So there we go. And I like the crimini and the baby Bella mushrooms probably better than the white mushrooms. I think they have a bit more flavor. The portobello are great, but portobellos can be really expensive, so I generally use those if I'm stuffing them, like with mashed potatoes. And speaking of mashed potatoes, that is what is going to be the heart of our dinner tonight. Our dinners are starch-based. The majority of our calories come from starch, but the majority of the volume comes from vegetables. So I always make sure I have a green vegetable, or at least a vegetable. It doesn't have to be green necessarily, with every meal. So tonight it's broccoli. So I'm using my Pampered Chef microwave cooker. There's a little bit of water on the bottom. You don't need much. This is great for travel. This also comes in a larger size. Just going to pop it in the microwave for 4 minutes. Every vegetable is different. Brussels sprouts takes about 6 minutes. If you're cooking a larger amount, the Tupperware Smart Steamer works great in the microwave. You can stack cook, so I use that one as well. Let's see if that little onion will come out that I dropped. There we go. Oh, I made it worse. So there we go. So that is, I think you need to come a little closer, please, during the filming of this because they want to see the process in the pan. There we go. And we're just going to wait for this water to evaporate and then it's done. Now, if I know that I was doing this, I don't have to wait till right before dinner. I could have done this much more in advance and for the next step, which is I'm going to blend it. What am I going to blend it in to make it creamy and delicious without having to use flour or make a roux? Well, I'm going to turn the heat off and I'm going to tell you. The answer is cauliflower. So over here, I have 12 ounces. Where I live, the cauliflower comes in 12-ounce bags of fresh cauliflower. I recommend fresh. I think frozen might have too much liquid, might change the ratio. I have it in my blender, and I'm going to add my ½ a cup of roasted garlic cloves and blend. Now I am going to take very carefully. This is one reason that you might want to do this in advance because then you don't have to deal with a hot pan. See, I get a bigger spoon. I'm going to add my onions and mushrooms to the blender with the cauliflower puree and the roasted garlic. Smells amazing, I promise. I don't love mushrooms, but in a recipe like this where they're blended, they do impart so much flavor when they're cooked. So I want to get everything in the blender. Now the mashed potatoes I made in advance. I know I showed you in another video how to make mashed potatoes. You can also go to Weight Loss Wednesday on YouTube, episode 55 and 56, or just use your favorite mashed potato recipe. I used the 3-quart Instant Pot tonight because I wasn't making the usual amount, which is 4 pounds, because Charles is going to be away tomorrow and I didn't want to have too many leftovers. But when I do have leftover mashed potatoes, what I do is I just bake them or air fry them into little patties. So I've got everything in there. And now I'm going to blend again. Now I'm going to taste it. Okay, so for me, this is absolutely perfect. It doesn't need anything else for me. But if you feel it's too thick, I want my gravy thick. If you feel it's too thick, maybe you want to thin it out a little bit, you can add, not this whole cup, but a little bit of your favorite unsweetened plant milk. If you want to have it more like a Thanksgiving kind of taste, what you can add, and again, this is up to you, is up to a teaspoon of poultry seasoning. It says poultry seasoning, but there's no poultry in it. It's sage and marjoram and thyme, and this is an ingredient that's often used in stuffing. That's just telling me the broccoli's ready. You can add, remember, whenever you do a recipe, you can always add, you can't take away. So first of all, make sure you like this seasoning. It's a powerful seasoning. Not everyone likes it, but it does give kind of a Thanksgiving feel. I would start with maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon and work your way up. And if you need salt, to me, it doesn't need any, but Benson's Table Tasty, maybe up to a teaspoon is a good choice. I want to blend this just a little bit more to make it even smoother and creamier. The real secret is the roasting of the garlic. When I make this without roasted garlic and just saute it, it's good, but it needs a lot more seasoning, like the Benson's Table Tasty and the poultry seasoning. So here are my mashed potatoes, which I made earlier in the day. And then let me go get my broccoli to show you how pretty it looks all together. I love this little device. And again, when you're microwaving, you can always add time, but you can't take away time. So you can always do a little bit less. This is organic broccoli. I like to have a little bit of color on my plate. And don't be afraid to eat a large serving of starch. That's where you're going to get your satiety. So we'll put it on the plate. Sometimes I get like an ice cream scoop and do little scoops to make it look real pretty. But I think what's more important than pretty is how it tastes. And then pour your delicious gravy over the top. Oh yeah. And always serve it with some vegetables. Color is very important in my opinion. Unless you're colorblind, then I guess it's not so important. And let's just make this as pretty as possible. Look at that. Delicious mushroom gravy. The roasted garlic is the secret. I hope you'll try this gravy. Let me know how you like it, and I hope you'll enjoy it.